Cole had just locked the iron gate of his small farm when he saw her standing on the other side of the fence. A young woman pregnant dragging a torn suitcase through the dust. She did not beg. She did not cry. She only said softly, "If you let me stay, I'll do the housework for you." He almost turned away. He was tired, broke, raising his boy alone and done trusting strangers. But just then, his 8-year-old son stepped onto the porch, looked at her, and said something that froze him cold. What did the boy say? The farm sat at the end of a gravel road 2 miles past the edge of town where the asphalt gave up and the pine woods took over. Darius Cole had lived there since the spring his grandfather died, and the place still felt more like the old man's than his own. The porch beams showed saw marks from 1963 when his grandfather had cut and shaped each post by hand because no bank in the county would lend a black man money for lumber that year. Darius had grown up hearing that story the way other boys grew up hearing about saints. He was 34 now, and most evenings he ran his hand along those beams the way a man checks the pulse of something he is afraid to lose. He had come home from the army at 26 with a steady hand, a quiet voice, and a marriage already cracking. Chanel stayed long enough to give him Noah, and then long enough to decide she didn't want either of them. 3 years had passed since the morning she walked out the gate with one suitcase. Noah had been 5. He had stood on the porch in his pajamas and watched her go, and he had not cried, which was somehow worse. Darius had carried that image into every quiet hour since. Noah was 8 now, small for his age, the kind of boy who drew pictures on the porch steps instead of running with the other children in town. Darius worked a small herd of goats, fixed fences, and drove a feed truck 3 days a week. He tried not to count the bills at the kitchen table where the boy could see him doing it. The white woman on the next farm waved at him sometimes when she drove past, polite, never close enough to stop. He had stopped noticing the distance years ago. People said Darius Cole was a strong man, and he supposed they meant it kindly. But strength, the way they used the word, was not really a compliment. It was a tax. It was the price he paid every morning to keep getting up, to keep packing Noah's lunch, to keep the porch light burning at night so the boy would never come downstairs and find the house dark. Single fathers were called strong because nobody wanted to look too long at the loneliness behind the word. Some men did not cry because they were fine. Other men did not cry because they no longer had the time to be anything but standing. The afternoon she came was a Thursday in late September. The sun had gone soft and orange across the fields, and Darius had just finished latching the gate at the end of the drive. He heard the wheels of a suitcase before he saw her, one wheel dragging crooked through the dust. She walked up to the fence and stopped about 6 feet from him, and he understood in one glance that she had been walking a long time. She was young, maybe 22, with a coat too thin for the wind and shoes that had been white once. Her belly pushed against the front of her sweater in a way that left no doubt. She did not look at him the way women looked at strangers when they wanted something. She looked at him the way a person looks at a door they are not sure will open. "I'm not here to beg." Her voice was careful, the voice of someone who had practiced the sentence on the road. "If you let me stay, I'll do the housework for you. Cooking, cleaning the garden. Just a few days, until I figure out where to go." Darius did not answer right away. He looked her over once, slow, the way he looked at a horse he was being asked to buy. The torn suitcase, the dust on her coat, the way she held one hand near her belly without seeming to know she was doing it. "There's a church in town," he said finally. 2 miles back the way you came. They take people in." She nodded as if she had expected the answer. "I tried. They're full this week." He almost believed her. He almost didn't. He turned without speaking and pulled the gate the rest of the way shut. The latch fell into place with a sharp metal sound, the way it always did, the way he had heard 1,000 times. She flinched. It was nothing, almost. A small jerk of the shoulders, a quick step back. Her hand went up to her belly so fast it had to be a reflex, the kind a body learns from being struck. She caught herself within a second and tried to smile, and the smile was worse than the flinch. Darius saw it. He did not say a word about it. He did not ask. There are things people will never say with their mouths, but their bodies have already told the whole story. A flinch that comes too fast. A hand that rises to cover what is most precious without the mind giving permission. That is not nervousness. That is a memory the body keeps when the mouth has been taught not to. The kind man does not ask what happened to you. The kind man only learns from that moment on to close the gate a little more softly the next time. He told her she could wait by the fence while he thought about it. He turned and walked up the gravel toward the house, already shaping the words of his refusal. He was not a hard man, but he was a careful one. A stranger at the gate was a risk. A pregnant stranger was a heavier risk, the kind that did not leave when she said she would. He had a son inside that house, and that son had already lost one woman in his life. Darius would not let him lose another to a person they did not know. He climbed the 3 steps to the porch and was reaching for the screen door when he saw Noah. The boy was standing just inside the doorway with his drawing pad pressed against his chest, looking past him down the drive at the woman by the fence. His eyes were the same eyes he had used 3 years ago, watching his mother walk away with her one suitcase. "Noah, go on inside," Darius said. "I'll be in directly." The boy did not move. He looked up at his father, and his small face had the still, serious look that Darius had learned to be afraid of because it was usually followed by something he could not unhear. "Dad," Noah said almost in a whisper, "don't let her go like Mom did." Darius could not answer. The words landed somewhere under his ribs and stayed there. The boy did not understand grown men's reasons. He did not understand risk or strangers or how a stranger could become a wound, but he understood the sound of a gate closing on a woman with a suitcase. He had heard that sound once before, and he had carried it with him every day since, and Darius had not known. Darius had thought he had hidden it well. He had thought a child of 5 would forget. A child of 5 does not forget. A child only learns to wait until he is 8 to ask the question. Darius stood on the porch a long time without speaking. Then he set his keys on the railing, walked back down the steps, and crossed the gravel to the gate. He unlatched it slowly this time, gentler than he had ever closed it, and he opened it the rest of the way. "Come on in," he said. "There's a small room behind the kitchen. You can use it tonight." She did not thank him in big words. She only nodded and stepped through, and her free hand fell from her belly at last, the way a hand falls when it remembers it is allowed to rest. Sometimes grown men make decisions out of fear and call it being careful. And sometimes a child reminds a grown man that the world can also be looked at through mercy. An open gate is not always a mistake. Sometimes an open gate is the first time in a long while that a man chooses with his heart instead of with his old wounds. Elena kept her word from the very first morning. Darius woke at 5:30 the way he always did and found the kitchen already warm. Coffee on the stove, biscuits cooling on a clean towel, the floor swept so completely that the boards looked younger. She had folded Noah's school clothes on the back of a chair and set out his lunchbox. She did not speak much that first week, only enough to ask where things went and what the boy liked to eat. Darius answered in short sentences and went out to the goats. By the end of the second week, the house had started to feel different. The windows had been opened. The curtains, which had not been washed since Chanel, smelled like soap and sun. The garden behind the kitchen, which had gone half wild after a summer of neglect, was straightened and weeded. Elena did not ask him for anything. She did not even ask for a key. She slept in the small room behind the kitchen with the door cracked open the way a person sleeps when she still expects to have to run. Noah took to her faster than Darius had thought possible. The boy had been a quiet child for 3 years, and now there was a soft sound in the house that Darius did not at first recognize. It was Noah talking. The boy would come home from school and stand at the kitchen counter and tell Elena every small thing about his day, the way the recess monitor had blown her whistle twice, the way a girl named Hannah had drawn a horse better than him, the way the bus driver had a new hat. Elena listened to all of it. She did not nod and look at the clock. She listened the way a person listens who has been alone for a long time and knows what it costs a child to be heard all the way through. It was on a Tuesday morning in the 3rd week that Darius first saw the thing he was not supposed to see. He was carrying feed sacks from the truck to the shed, and the wind had caught the kitchen door, and he had pulled it shut harder than he meant to. The sound was sharp, the kind of slap a wooden door makes against a wooden frame. From the kitchen came a small crash. He stepped inside and there was Elena standing in the middle of the floor with the broken halves of a blue plate at her feet, her eyes fixed on something that was not in the room. Her shoulders had locked. Her breath had stopped. He could see in the strange stillness of her that she was somewhere else, somewhere years away. He did not say anything. He bent down, picked up the pieces of the plate and dropped them quietly into the trash. He went to the cupboard and took down another plate of the same color and set it on the counter where the broken one had been. "Don't worry about it," he said low and even. "Plates break." She came back into the room a moment later the way a person surfaces from cold water, and she nodded without looking at him. He turned and walked back outside to the feed sacks. There are kindnesses that are louder than any question. Sometimes the most respectful thing a man can do is not ask. 3 nights later, Noah came downstairs for water. The kitchen was dark, and he almost did not see her. Elena was sitting on the floor with her back against the cabinets, both arms wrapped around her belly, one hand pressed hard against her mouth. She was crying without sound. Noah was 8 years old, but he had lived 3 years in a house with a man who did not know how to talk about the woman who had left, and he had learned what to do when somebody cried that way. He did not turn on the light. He did not say her name. He went back upstairs, took the brown stuffed bear off his bed, came down again, sat next to her on the kitchen floor and put the bear in her lap. Then he leaned his head against her shoulder and stayed there until her breathing slowed. In the morning, Elena returned the bear to him at breakfast. Her eyes were red, but she was smiling. Noah took the bear back without a word and tucked it under his arm and went to the bus stop. Darius watched the whole exchange from the stove and did not understand all of it, but he understood enough to know that something had moved in his house that he had not been part of and that it was good. The first time he laughed, he did not know he was going to. It was a Saturday afternoon. Elena was trying to catch one of the brown laying hens that had gotten out of the pen. The bird was faster than her, and her belly was making her slower, and she chased it twice around the woodpile before her foot slipped in the loose straw, and she sat down hard. She was not hurt. She started to laugh from the ground, one hand on her stomach, and Noah, who had been watching from the porch, doubled over giggling. Darius had been splitting wood at the side of the shed. The sound came out of him before he could stop it. A real laugh, deep the kind he had not heard from his own throat since before Noah was born. He turned around to see if anyone had noticed, and both of them were looking at him grinning, and he had to look away quickly because his eyes had gone hot. That evening at supper, Elena passed him the dish of sweet potatoes. Their fingers met for a second on the rim of the bowl. Both of them pulled back. Neither of them spoke. Noah was telling a long story about a boy at school who had eaten a worm on a dare, and he did not see the small thing that had happened over his head. Darius cut his cornbread very carefully into squares and did not look up for a long time. The third moment came on a night in early October. Noah had gone to bed early because of a cold. Darius was sitting on the porch with a cup of tea, the kind Elena had started making at night with honey and lemon. She came out and sat in the other rocking chair without asking. The crickets were loud. The porch light was a soft yellow square on the boards. "What was she like?" Elena asked after a while. "Your wife." Darius drank from his cup before he answered. "She was tired, by the end of it. She wanted a different life than the one I could give her, and she wasn't wrong about that. She was wrong about how she left." He looked out at the dark fields. "But that's old water now." Elena nodded. The silence between them stretched, and it was not uncomfortable. "And the father," he said, "of the baby." She did not answer for a long time. When she finally did, her voice was very quiet. "I'll tell you, but not tonight." He nodded once. "All right." It was a small thing that not tonight, but he knew its weight. Not tonight was a promise. It was the sound of a person who had not been allowed to keep her own timeline in a long while, taking the timeline back. He did not press her. A man who has been trusted with a not tonight does not trade it for a right now. The next Saturday, Darius drove the 3 of them into town. Elena needed things for the baby, small things, soft things, and he could see she had been trying not to ask. He told her on Friday night that they would go in the morning and she should make a list, and she had stayed up late writing one in pencil on the back of an envelope. The general store on the main square sold everything from bridles to baby bottles. The clerk behind the counter was a thin woman in a pink cardigan, and she watched the three of them come through the door the way a person watches a thing she is trying to understand. Darius pushing the cart, Elena beside him with her hand resting on her belly, Noah bouncing along behind holding the list. The woman's eyes went from the boy to Elena to Darius and back, and her mouth made a small, tight line. She did not say anything wrong. She did not have to. Some things are said with the face. Elena felt it before they were halfway down the aisle. Her shoulders drew in slightly and she stopped reading the list out loud. Darius noticed and put a can of formula in the cart and kept moving as if nothing had happened. They paid at the counter. The clerk made change without smiling. They walked out into the sun. In the truck on the way home, Noah was quiet for almost a mile. Then he said, "Dad, why did that lady look at us funny?" Darius drove with one hand on the wheel and the other on the gear shift. He did not look at the boy. He did not raise his voice. "Because she's not used to seeing a family that looks like ours, son, that's all. You don't have to be angry at her. You just have to walk straight. Your great-grandfather walked straight his whole life. So did your grandfather, so will you." Noah thought about that for a while. Then he nodded the small, serious nod of a child filing something away for later. Elena in the passenger seat turned her face to the window. Darius could not see her expression. He did not need to. He had said what he had said for the boy, but he understood by the stillness on her side of the truck that she had taken it indifferently. She had come to his gate because she had run out of road. She had stayed because the porch light was on. Now she was beginning to understand that the man who had opened the gate had been raised by people who knew exactly what it cost to keep a porch light burning for somebody else. Dignity is a strange thing. It cannot be handed down in a lesson. It cannot be taught from a book. A father can tell his son 1,000 times to hold his head up, but if the father lowers his own under a cold look, the boy will learn the lowering, not the words. Children do not listen to what we say. They watch how we walk. And the walk of a man who has been taught by his ancestors is almost always straighter than the walk of a man who has only been taught by school. It was 3 days after the trip into town that Chanel came back. She arrived in a rented car in a coat that cost more than the truck Darius drove. She did not knock. She walked up to the porch, opened the screen door, and was halfway through the kitchen before Darius came in from the yard. Elena was standing at the stove in an apron that had once belonged to Darius's mother. The two women saw each other across the kitchen, and the kitchen got very still. "Who is she?" Chanel said. She did not say it like a question. She said it like a verdict. "Chanel." Darius's voice was careful. "This isn't the time." 3 years. Chanel's eyes did not leave Elena. 3 years and you've already replaced us. In an apron. In my kitchen. Noah had been at the kitchen table doing math homework. He slid out of the chair and moved behind Darius's leg the way he had done when he was 5. Darius felt the small hand grip the back of his jeans and recognized the grip. It was the same one. The exact same one. 3 years had changed the hand's size but not its meaning. Elena set down the wooden spoon and took a step back from the stove. "I'm not in the way," she said quietly. "I can leave the room. You can leave the house," Chanel said. "That's enough." Darius's voice had gone low. He turned and looked at Chanel in a way Noah had never seen him look at her before. The person who walks out of a home does not get to come back and decide how the people left behind are putting themselves together. You went. You went of your own choosing. You don't get to stand in this kitchen and tell me how to heal. Chanel's face changed. The anger held for a second longer, and then something underneath it broke and her eyes filled. She did not cry. She turned, walked back through the kitchen, let the screen door bang behind her, and got in her rented car. They heard the engine start. They heard the gravel crunch. They heard the sound get smaller down the road. Noah was still holding the back of his father's jeans. Darius reached down without looking and put his hand on the boy's head and kept it there. That night, Elena came out to the porch after Noah was asleep. She did not sit in the rocking chair this time. She sat on the top step and looked out at the dark, and Darius sat near her, and after a long while, she began to talk. His name was Marcus, she said. He was 12 years older than her. He had been charming at first, the way men like that always are. He had told her she was beautiful. He had paid her rent when she lost her waitressing job. By the time she understood what was happening, he had her bank card, her phone passcode, the keys to her apartment, and a way of saying her name that made her flinch before he finished the word. When she told him she was pregnant, she watched his face, and what she saw in his eyes was not love and not anger, but calculation. He was figuring out how to use the baby to keep her. That was the night she started saving cash in a coffee can in the back of the closet. She had taken a bus. She had ridden until her money was gone, and then she had gotten off at a small station in a town she did not know. She had walked along the road for hours. It was almost dark when she came over the rise and saw a porch light burning at the end of a gravel drive. "I didn't pick your house because of you," she said. Her voice was steady. "I picked it because the light was still on." Darius did not answer for a long moment. Then he reached over slowly and put his hand on top of hers where it rested on the step. She did not pull away. He did not pull away. The crickets kept on, and the porch light kept on, and neither of them moved for a long while. People often ask why women in those kinds of relationships do not leave sooner. The question is the wrong question. Women like that do not stay because they love. They stay because they have been taught day by day that leaving will be more dangerous than staying. And when they finally do walk out, it is not impulse. It is arithmetic. It is the long, quiet math they have done at 3 in the morning, 100 nights in a row, until the risk of going at last drops below the risk of staying. A porch light burning in the dark is not just light. To a woman on the run, it is the last test of whether the world still has a kind room left in it anywhere. Some people believe the worst thing that can happen to a person is to be betrayed. It is not. The worst thing is what comes after. The slow, quiet damage of starting to doubt every kind thing that comes to you afterward, of standing on a stranger's porch in the dark and being unable to tell whether the light in the window is mercy or a trap. 2 mornings later, the truck pulled into the drive. It was a black double-cab dust on the fenders, the kind of vehicle a man drives when he wants to be seen coming. It stopped at the gate. 3 men got out. The driver was tall, narrow at the hips, dressed too neatly for a country road. He smiled at Darius across the fence the way some men smile at dogs. "Afternoon," he called. "I'm looking for my wife. Folks in town said she might have come out this way. Pretty girl, pregnant, goes by Elena." Darius did not open the gate. He walked down the gravel until he was 4 feet from the fence and stopped there. Behind him, the screen door creaked, and he heard Noah's small footsteps come out onto the porch and then stop. He did not turn around. He kept his eyes on the man at the gate. "There's no wife of yours here," he said. The man's smile did not change. "She's confused. She's been off her medication. I just want to take her home and get her some help." "There's no wife of yours here," Darius said again. Marcus tilted his head and looked past him up the drive toward the porch. His eyes settled on Noah. He looked at the boy for 1 long second, and then he looked back at Darius, and the smile thinned out into something colder. "Cute kid," he said softly. "You be careful with him." He got back in the truck. The other 2 men got in. The truck backed up slowly, turned, and drove away. Darius stood at the fence until the dust had settled. Then he walked back up the drive, took Noah by the shoulder, and steered him inside. He locked the front door. He locked the back door. He went into the bedroom closet and took down his grandfather's hunting rifle, the one with the worn walnut stock, and he carried it out to the porch. He sat in the rocking chair through the night with the rifle across his knees and the porch light burning, and he did not sleep. Children do not learn from what we tell them so much, as from what we do when the trouble actually comes. What we choose in the hour of fear becomes the belief they will carry the rest of their lives. A father may not leave behind much in the way of money or land, but he leaves behind an image of himself in the moment he was tested, and that image becomes the compass his children steer by long after he himself is gone. Marcus came back on a Thursday, and he came back smart. He waited until late afternoon when he must have watched the place long enough to know that Darius worked the back of the property at that hour. The goat shed sat almost a quarter-mile behind the house, blocked from view by a stand of pines, and Darius was inside it pulling a thorn out of a yearling's hoof when he heard the scream. It was Noah. Darius dropped the hoof. He came out of that shed at a dead run, faster than he had moved since the army, the rifle still leaning where he had left it on the porch 100 yards away. He came around the pines and saw what Marcus had set up. The man was standing in the side yard, and he had Noah by the collar of his shirt, lifting the boy up onto his toes. The other 2 men from the truck were not there this time. Marcus had come alone, and he had timed it. "Get her out here," Marcus was saying, calm, almost conversational. "Tell her to come out, and the boy is fine." Elena was at the screen door. She had the kitchen phone in one hand, and her other hand was pressed flat against the glass. Her face was white. Darius saw all of this in 1 second, the way a man sees a battlefield, and then he was crossing the yard. "Let go of my son." His voice was lower than he had ever heard it. Marcus turned, and the smile flickered. He had not expected Darius from that direction. He had expected him from the house. But Marcus was not a man who backed up easily, and his free hand went to his belt, and a folding knife came open in it with a small, clean sound. "Stay where you are, brother," Marcus said. "I'll walk out of here with her and the boy goes home with you. Easy day. Don't make it a hard one." Darius did not stop walking. He did not raise his hands. He did not shout. He walked straight at Marcus, and 3 feet out when the knife came up, he moved the way he had been trained to move a long time ago in another life in a uniform. He stepped inside the arc of the blade, took the wrist, turned it, and brought Marcus down across his own hip and onto the dirt with a sound that knocked the air out of the man. The knife went into the grass. Darius put a knee in the small of Marcus's back and his full weight on it, and he pinned the wrist behind the shoulder blade in a hold that did not break bone, but made breaking bone the next available option. "Noah." Darius did not look up. "You all right, son?" Noah was on the ground 3 feet away where Marcus had let him fall. He was crying, but he was nodding. "Yes, sir." "Go inside. Go to Elena. Stay there." The boy got up and ran. The screen door banged. Darius felt his own hand and saw almost without interest that the palm was bleeding where the blade had caught it on the way past. He kept his weight where it was. Marcus was swearing into the grass, the kind of low, ugly cursing a man does when he has just realized that his evening is going to end differently than he planned. "Elena!" Darius raised his voice even but loud so it would carry through the screen. "Call the sheriff. Tell him exactly where we are. Tell him we have an intruder on the ground and a knife in the yard." He heard her voice through the door, shaking, but clear, giving the address. The wait for the sheriff was about 11 minutes. Darius knew this later because he checked the clock when it was over, and he was the kind of man who needed to know how long a thing had taken. Marcus tried twice to twist out of the hold. Both times the wrist went a little tighter, and both times the man stopped trying. He started talking instead. He told Darius what he was going to do to him, what the courts would do to Darius for this, what would happen to Elena once he got out. The words were filthy, and they were meant to make Darius angry enough to throw a punch. Darius did not answer any of it. He kept his weight where it was, and he kept his eyes on the kitchen window where Noah's small face had appeared watching. When he spoke, he did not speak to Marcus. He spoke through the window loud enough for his son to hear every word. "Men in this house do not hit a person because they are angry. We hold them down until the law gets here. You hear me, son?" Noah behind the glass nodded slowly. The tears had not stopped, but the nod was steady. That, more than the takedown, more than the 11 minutes, more than anything that had happened in the yard, was the thing the boy would carry. He would forget the exact words by the time he was 20. He would not forget the lesson. He had learned in the worst hour of his small life what kind of man his father had chosen to be, and therefore what kind of man he himself was being asked to grow into. The sheriff's cruisers came up the gravel with the lights on. 2 deputies stepped out. They knew Darius. Most people in that county did. They took one look at Marcus on the ground, one look at the knife in the grass, one look at the cut on Darius's hand, and the older deputy said, "All right, Cole, we've got him from here." Marcus was cuffed and walked to the cruiser, still talking. He was talking when the door shut on him. He was talking when they drove him away. Inside the kitchen, Elena was sitting at the table with Noah on her lap, holding him so tightly that the boy's feet were off the floor. Darius came in. He stood at the sink and ran cold water over his hand. The cut was not deep. Elena got up, put Noah carefully into a chair, and came over without saying anything. She took the dish towel from the hook, ran it under the water, and wrapped his hand. Her fingers this time did not pull away when they touched his. She held his hand inside the towel and pressed it, and she finally looked up at him, and her eyes were full but steady. "Thank you," she said. It was the first time she had ever used those 2 words in his house. He nodded. He did not trust his voice yet. The weeks after were the kind of weeks that belonged to paperwork. Darius went with Elena to the county courthouse. He drove her to the Women's Legal Aid office 2 towns over. They got the protective order. They got the paternity claim filed and sealed in a way that meant Marcus would not be on the child's birth certificate. The lawyer was a small, gray-haired woman with reading glasses on a chain, and she told Elena kindly but firmly that Marcus would be in custody for a long while, and that even when he came out, the order would still stand. Elena signed every form with a hand that no longer shook. It was almost 3 weeks after the arrest that the message came. Darius was on the porch that evening when his phone buzzed on the railing. The number was Chanel's. He had not heard from her since the day she had stood in his kitchen. He almost did not open it. He did finally, and he read it twice. "I saw the news. I'm glad you and Noah are all right. You've done better by him than I did even when I wasn't there. Tell him I'm sorry. Please." He sat with the phone in his hand for a long time. He did not write back. He thought about it, and he did not. Some apologies are not for answering. Some apologies are for receiving and putting down. He went inside and he showed the message to Noah. The boy read it slowly, the way he read everything, his lips moving a little. When he was done, he handed the phone back. He thought about it for a minute. Then he picked up his pencil and went back to the picture he had been drawing on the kitchen table. That was all. He did not cry. He did not ask questions. He had read it, and he had taken it, and he had gone on with what he was doing. Some wounds do not heal because they get answered. Some wounds heal because the person carrying them finally has something better in his hands than the wound itself. Noah had a kitchen full of light and a father in the next room and a woman who listened to his school stories all the way through. The old wound was still there. It had simply stopped bleeding. Elena's daughter was born on a cold, bright morning in early December. The hospital was 40 minutes away on the county road. Darius drove. He held Elena's hand in the elevator. He stood outside the delivery room with his cap in both hands, and Noah stood beside him very serious, leaning against his father's leg. When the nurse finally came out and told them mother and baby were both fine, Darius's knees went a little soft, and he had to sit down for a minute on the plastic chair in the hallway. Noah patted his shoulder the way an adult would. They named her May Cordelia. May because Elena had loved the sound of it since she was a girl. Cordelia because that had been the name of Darius's great-grandmother, the woman who had washed other people's laundry for 30 years to put his grandfather through school. The woman whose hands had been raw all winter, every winter, so that the porch they were now living under could one day exist. When Darius told Elena slowly and quietly why he wanted the second name in the baby's name, Elena cried. She cried the way a person cries when a kindness has gone somewhere deeper than she had defenses for. The nurse gave them a moment. Blood gives a person a last name. Choice gives a person a home. Some children grow up in houses full of their own kin and never feel they belong to any of it. And some children get a name from a stranger, and the name itself becomes the rope that ties them into a line of people stronger than any family tree. Family is not really written on a birth certificate. Family is the answer to one question. When the child cries at 3 in the morning, who is the person who gets up? Spring came late that year. The dogwood beside the porch finally opened in the last week of April. Darius stood in the kitchen doorway with a coffee cup in his hand and looked out across the front yard. Noah was running in long, crooked circles around the carriage, and the baby inside it was watching him with the wide, solemn eyes of a child who has decided her older brother is the most interesting thing in the world. Elena was on the porch, hanging laundry on the line his grandfather had strung between the porch posts in 1963. Darius watched all of it from the doorway and understood in a quiet way that there are things a man can ask for his entire life and never receive. And then there are days when, in return for one ordinary kindness given without calculation, the world quietly delivers something else, something he had not known how to ask for, something better than the thing he had been praying for the whole time. The farm had been a place to take shelter. It had become a home. Nobody can go back and undo the past. But anyone on any morning can choose one small kindness today and turn the whole shape of tomorrow with it. Sometimes a single decision to open a gate is enough to save more than one life. And maybe the most valuable thing a person can leave behind in this world is not money and not a name on a building. Maybe it is only this, a porch with the light still on late at night for a stranger walking in the dark.